I am recording this because there is no one left to record it for me. My name is Arlen Juvras. I hold the designation Archivist Third within the Bureau of the Containment Accord, though the Bureau no longer exists in any meaningful sense, and the Accord itself dissolved 14 standard months ago, not by vote, not by treaty, not by the kind of formal collapse that produces documents and ceremonies and the orderly transfer of records. It dissolved the way a body dissolves when it has been in cold water for a very long time. Quietly. Without announcement. One morning the Bureau heads simply stopped answering their transit links, and the silence spread outward from the center like a stain, and I was the only one left on Merival 9 to notice. I am going to tell you what the Accord was, what it built, and what was done to what it built. Then I am going to seal this archive and leave. I will not speak about this again. I am making that commitment now, before I begin, so that whoever opens this record will understand that what follows is not a prologue. It is everything. The Containment Accord was formed 231 standard years ago by a consortium of 11 species, the Veth Serai, among them, which is my own people, following the silence of Vaughan Sector. If you do not know what the silence of Vaughan Sector was, I cannot help you. The records exist. What I will tell you is that after Vaughan, the 11 species convened for 40 days on a station that no longer exists and agreed on a single principle, that human space would be bounded. Not invaded. Not attacked. The Accord was not a military alliance. Every member species who had sent a military force into human space had discovered, with great consistency, that military forces sent into human space did not return. This was not a mystery to be solved. It was data. The Accord's founders were, whatever else one might say about them, pragmatic. You do not build a cage from the inside. You build it from the outside. So they built it. The perimeter was 312 relay stations, each one networked to the next, each one broadcasting a signal on every navigational frequency used by any species within the Accord's jurisdiction. The signal said, in translation, this boundary is sealed. The signal said, no passage inward will be permitted. The signal said, in the more technical channels intended only for the Bureau's own fleet commanders, human space is designated contained. All approaches are to be logged and deterred. Approach with caution. Do not enter. The stations took 40 years to build and another decade to calibrate. When the last relay came online, there was a ceremony. I have seen the footage. The 11 Accord representatives stood in a line on the bridge of the command station and released a commemorative beacon, a small, bright thing that drifted outward toward the perimeter and blinked twice and went dark. There was polite applause. I used to find that footage embarrassing, in the way that old records of the confident are often embarrassing in retrospect. Now I find it merely sad. For 170 years, the perimeter held. I want to be precise about what held means in this context, because it would be easy to misread it. The perimeter held in the sense that no Accord member species crossed it. Ships were turned back. Navigational hazard warnings were issued. A handful of vessels that pressed too close to the relay network disappeared, and their loss was logged in the Bureau's records under the designation containment event and filed without further investigation. The perimeter held in the sense that the 11 species of the Accord went about their business and did not think very much about what was on the other side of it. That was, I understand now, the Accord's most significant error. We were not containing humans. We were containing ourselves. The first relay station to go silent was Perimeter Post 11, a secondary node, low strategic value, positioned at the trailing edge of what the Accord's charts designated the Veth Serai buffer zone. It went silent on a morning I was 17 years into my posting at Merival 9, during a routine calibration review. One moment its signal was present in the network. The next moment it was not. The Bureau's response was procedural. A maintenance vessel was dispatched. The maintenance vessel did not return. A second vessel was dispatched with a security complement. It did not return. I logged both disappearances under containment event, as protocol required, and filed them and returned to my other work. 3 months later, Perimeter Post 19 went silent. Then Post 44. Then Posts 7, 8, and 9 within the same standard week. I want to describe what it felt like to sit at my console in Merival 9's archive chamber and watch the perimeter's status map change in those months. I want to describe it accurately, because this is a record, and records are supposed to be accurate. What it felt like was this. It felt like watching a very long fence, one you had always believed was whole, and noticing for the first time that there were no longer any posts in certain sections. Not broken posts. Not fallen posts. Absent posts. As if they had been removed. As if something had come to each one in the night with the appropriate tools and had simply taken it down, carefully, and carried the pieces away.
No debris. No wreckage.
No signals of distress.
No sounds.
Just the absence where something had been. I filed my reports. I sent dispatches to the Bureau's senior leadership on 4 different stations. I received, in the early period, replies that were measured and procedural and confident. Investigation ongoing. Reinforcement fleets repositioning. The Accord takes all containment events seriously. I received, in the middle period, replies that were shorter and less specific. I received, in the later period, no replies at all. By the time perimeter post 81 went dark, there were 41 consecutive silent nodes along what had once been the Accord's southern arc. The perimeter's signal in that region was simply gone. There was no battle on the Bureau's records because there had been no battle. There had been an approach, and then there had been nothing, and then there had been one less instrument of containment in the galaxy, and then another after that. I used to believe, in the first years of the dismantling, that it would stop, that it was a demonstration, a message of some kind, a warning delivered in the language of removal rather than words. I used to believe that there would be a moment when something communicated, when someone spoke. No one spoke. The Accord convened an emergency session in what I later calculated was the same week that perimeter posts 100 through 112 went silent in a span of 90 hours. I was not present at the session. I received a transcript. The transcript was 47 pages long and contained, in my reading of it, a great deal of procedural argument and historical precedent, and the kind of language that institutions use when they are not yet prepared to say the thing that is actually true. The session concluded with a resolution to reinforce the perimeter, to dispatch a combined fleet to assess the situation, and to commission a full review of Containment Protocol 7. The combined fleet was dispatched. The combined fleet did not return. I logged it. Containment event. Filed it. Returned to my console. After the fleet, the dissolution of the Accord was not dramatic. No species declared withdrawal. No statement was issued. What happened, instead, was that the transit links began to go quiet one bureau at a time. The way lights go out in a building when everyone has decided, separately and without coordination, that there is no longer any reason to stay. The Kalahari withdrew their technical teams from perimeter maintenance first. The Sul pulled their fleet complement 2 months after. The Vethserai Bureau headquarters on Aran Station stopped answering in the 3rd month, and I spent a long time looking at the dead link before I understood that there was simply no one on the other end anymore. I do not think they were destroyed. I want to say that clearly, because the record should be clear. I think they left. I think my people, and the Kalahari, and the Sul, and the remaining 8 species of the Accord looked at their status maps and saw what I was seeing, the steady, patient removal of every instrument the Accord had ever placed between themselves and human space, and they made a decision that did not require a vote or a declaration. They made the same decision that every species makes, eventually, when presented with data of sufficient consistency. They went somewhere else and they did not look back. I stayed because I am an archivist, because someone has to close the record properly, because 41 years of files do not seal themselves, and because I find I cannot leave this station without finishing what I came here to do, even if what I came here to do has changed in ways I did not anticipate when I first arrived. The last relay of the perimeter's eastern arc went silent 6 standard weeks ago. I watched it go. One moment the signal was present, and I was listening to it the way you listen to a sound you have heard every day for so long that you no longer notice it, and then it was absent, and the silence that replaced it was the loudest thing I have heard in 41 years of work. 312 stations. 116 Accord vessels dispatched as reinforcements, security complements, survey craft, maintenance teams, combined fleet elements. Not one of them returned. Not one sent a final transmission. Not one left wreckage we could find. The perimeter, which took 40 years to build, was dismantled in 90 months and 3 days, and in all that time, no human spoke a single word to any member species of the Accord. I have spent considerable time thinking about that silence. A species that was enraged would have communicated its rage. A species that wanted to be feared would have communicated a warning. A species that had something to prove would have offered proof. Silence is not the weapon of a species that needs anything from you. Silence is what remains when the species on the other side of your cage has looked at what you built around them, has taken the time to understand it completely, and has decided that you are not worth addressing. We built the cage because we were afraid of what humans would do if we did not contain them. It had not occurred to us, not once in 231 years of Accord history, to consider what they might do if they chose, patiently and without anger, to simply take the cage apart. I am sealing the archive now. All Bureau records transferred to static storage. All active monitoring terminated. Merival 9 station systems cycling down to minimal power. I am the last Accord staff member on this station, and in approximately 6 hours I will board the last available transit vessel and leave the perimeter's former boundary for the last time. I will not speak about this again. I said that at the beginning and I mean it. Not because I have been threatened. Not because I have been warned. Because I have spent 41 years filing reports for an institution that no longer exists, about a perimeter that no longer exists, around a zone that was never, I understand now, contained at all, and I find I have nothing left to say that this record does not already say more clearly than I could. The tools of our containment are gone. We built them. We maintained them for 2 centuries. We sent our ships and our people to reinforce them, and our ships and our people did not come back, and eventually enough of us understood what that meant and quietly went home. The line on the star charts has been erased. There is no version of this record that ends with anything other than that fact, so I will end here. Archive closed.